hey, you know what? If you want balance in life, you have to do some things only for yourself. Not because your boss asked you to do it, not because your mom asked you to do it, not because your partner asked you to do it, not because you have to pay the bills. What are you doing just for yourself?
All right, hello Oceanside Perspective community. My name is Sarai. I'm the OP HR manager as well as our newsletter manager and also a third-year business student at USC. Today I'm joined with Abhay Gangadharan, Director of Future of Work and Workforce Architecture here at Google. Abhay is a seasoned and forward-thinking people operations executive with over 25 years of global experience. His career spans Fortune 100 companies, including 14 years of Google, as well as fast-paced startups across US, India, and also Japan. With a deep passion for shaping the future of work, he is committed to leveraging technology, including AI, to unlock human potential and build thriving, high-performance organizations. Abhay, thank you so much for joining us today. Any words you'd like to share with our community to start out?
You know, I'm super excited to be here for this conversation with you, and I am really excited about leadership, innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, all of the things that you guys are interested in, and so happy to have this conversation and chat with you.
Yeah, well, we're very excited to have you. Abhay, as a future of work leader, what excites you the most about your mission?
We're in this really interesting point in time where there is the technological shift which is happening, which is giving everybody the opportunity to reevaluate how we could get things done. You know, one of the things which I always love is the saying which kind of comes to me, which is, every disruption is an incredible opportunity.
That is Nissan Nicholas Taleb, correct?
That is also based on Nicholas Taleb, who I am a huge fan of. And I kind of use his anti-fragile thinking as like one of the core tenets of my own philosophy around how to kind of deal with the future of work.
Yeah, awesome. Actually, my next question is about that. That sense of purpose really resonates with us, especially the idea of designing work around people and instead of just fitting people into work. You're on part 17 of your Future of Work article series, exploring the evolution of the workplace. One of my favorites is actually the one that you mentioned, the new leader from authority to influence in an anti-fragile world. And we already touched upon anti-fragility, so I have a question to ask you. With 25 years across 3 continents, is there a defining moment or experience that has shaped or inspired your anti-fragile leadership style today?
I think the thing which you have to realize, like, you know, anti-fragility kind of happens not at a point in time, but through constantly doing things and kind of failing at it, and then trying and learning from it and like the fact that you can keep doing things and kind of becoming a better whole self of yourself over the long haul. I think that ends up becoming the incredible opportunity. Like, I kind of look at like my own career and kind of think about, you know, there were times when I did not know how to do something. Right. And that happened very early in my career. It happens more recently also. Mm-hmm. And every time I don't know how to do something and I try and I fail, that is when I feel like, oh, that is an interesting learning experience. And for me, you know, I feel like this kind of came together, you know, early on when I was working in a hedge fund and they were interested in investing in a tech space. And so I started kind of like, I did not have a background in tech, and they were like, you seem like the entrepreneurial type, you should be able to kind of do this type of work. And I was like, sounds like an interesting thing. And so I realized that there's so much to learn. And the first few things which I did there, which did not work out quite how I expected. But then I realized that, some of these things are just logical. You're able to kind of work your way through logic. And so it gave me the confidence that I can develop products, I can work with engineers. I might not be an engineer myself, but I can give people clear directions. Like, another humbling experience for me, which was like the learning experience in my mind, was when I tried to do my own startup. Like, for the longest time, I used to compete with Google. Google used to be this company which I was a product manager many years ago. When Google came out with Gmail, and I had a webmail product that I was responsible for. And I was like, this company gets it right. It gets it right so many times. And I was at MySpace for some points in time. And after that, I was like, oh, I understand advertising reasonably well. After I finished that tenure there, I was like, I'm going to do my own startup. I'm going to compete with Google because Google's got this online advertising space. I'm going to create an offline advertising space. And it was hard as hell. It was hard as hell. I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would enjoy it. It was just a learning experience for me. Did I take away a lot of things from it? Absolutely yes. Was I successful? Absolutely no. But it has made me into a much more, it's made me a lot more clear-eyed about exactly what I want. I think the time that I spent at the startup basically taught me that making all the decisions is not that important. It's the people who you make the decisions with that is more important. So I think when I kind of think about like, how did I get to anti-fragility, I feel like I had to kind of keep experimenting on myself and keep becoming a slightly more well-rounded version of what I could be. I think that is what my journey has been.
You can't beat Google, then join them.
Yeah, that is a good way to think about it. I actually joined this company. Literally, I was like, one of the reasons I joined in Tokyo. And I was in the Bay Area and Google decided they wanted to hire me to move to Tokyo. And it was interesting because I realized very quickly that I want to understand what makes this company tick. And I came here, and this company is not as organized as you would expect us to be. We are very unstructured in so many different ways. And I just keep wondering, like, what is the secret sauce? What makes this company incredible? It only a couple of years after I got here that I realized that it is all about the people. It is like the fact that we hire exceptionally smart people, give them really ambitious goals, and enable them to kind of learn from each other and fail. That makes it an incredible place to be, and that's why I've been here for 14 years.
Wow, and that's why you're people operations too.
Yes, that's a different story.
Okay, we'll get to that a little bit later then.
Yes.
So obviously you have a very impressive career and it's very long and well-rounded, but I want to know, what's one thing about you that people might be surprised about, or something not on your resume or your LinkedIn profile?
Oh my God. There are two things. So I love news. I love reading. I think I've probably got that on my LinkedIn too. It is the one thing I will create space for every single day. Is my view of kind of making sense of the world. Mostly tech news, I enjoy it. It's my little time for myself with my coffee. I think that's probably like the most unique thing about me. The other thing is, I would say, it's just sitting down and playing with my dogs. I have 2 dogs, and that is my favorite, de-stressing activity. I'll tell you this interesting story because I think it is probably relevant. I wanted to do my MBA many, many, many moons ago. And then I got sucked in with the dot-com boom, and I said, my career was going too well, and I was like, I don't think I need it. It was only after coming to Google and and I was like, oh, you know what? I feel like I am not learning. I need to learn something. Attended actually this really incredible session here, and there was an author who came who basically said, hey, you know what? If you want balance in life, you have to do some things only for yourself. Not because your boss asked you to do it, not because your mom asked you to do it, not because your partner asked you to do it, not because you have to pay the bills. What are you doing just for yourself? And I was like, what am I doing just for myself? And I said, there are 2 things which nobody in the world has asked me to do, and I really want to do them. One was I want to have a dog. And the second one was doing this MBA. I was like, nobody really asked me to do it, but I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it because this is a thing that I'm doing for myself. People talk about work-life balance, etc., in this world that we are in. And the reality of it is the balance comes from you. Right. And if you are able to do something just for yourself, other parts of your life feel more balanced. Right. And I think that was the thing, that was the aha moment for me.
Yeah, that's the leisure paradox, is it not?
Yes, that is the leisure paradox.
So I understand, actually, I'm going to pivot a little bit. I understand that you've headed an exciting job architecture project at Google here. In simple terms, what is workforce or job architecture?
So job architecture is the way we structure roles, levels, and organizations within the company. Today, you could have a software engineer, you have product managers, you have HR professionals. Within HR professionals, you can have people who are focused on recruiting, people who are focused on business partnering, people who are focused on analytics. And these are all different jobs and roles. As Google grew, we kind of created all of these roles as the business needed these roles. I think what we realized as we started becoming really large was because we did not have a central philosophy which was driving some of these, we did not always make the smartest decisions. The opportunity for job architecture essentially is to look at everything strategically and make sure that you're creating the right sets of jobs, the right sets of structures for the organization. You might be a chef. A chef working in a cafeteria is looking very different than a chef working for a Michelin star restaurant. Yeah. Is very different than a chef working in a food truck. They all are producing food. They all have to have some structures that enable them to do so. but you have to have the right structure for the business that you're serving at the maturity level that you're at. And as companies become more mature, they become more specialized, you will often need like a structure that supports that appropriately.
So Abhay, when we're talking about job architecture, how do you measure the success of that? Like, what does a successful job architecture project look like to you?
How do you measure the success of a building? You don't measure the success of a building. You measure the success of like how a building is actually enabling everybody who lives in it. And I think that's how I kind of think about the measurement of job architecture. Most people would say, oh, like how many hours did this save or whatever. I think you kind of think about this in terms of the processes that it's enabling. Are you able to hire people more efficiently? If you're able to hire people more efficiently, are you able to kind of convert them from hires to people who actually accept offers better? You know, job architecture manifests itself in performance management. You know, do people feel like their performance management is being done appropriately? Do they feel like, you know, their roles are appropriately structured? These are all the signals that you look for to kind of know whether your job architecture is working appropriately or, you know, is not kind of failing to the sides. An architecture is not doing what it needs to do, then people are not growing to their potential.
Yeah, but I'm assuming that project to this scale, you're going to have some challenges that you're going to face. What are some of those that you had trouble with implementing across such a large and diverse organization like Google?
The larger the problem, the more it excites me. The first one, that is my general motto. And the reason that is the case is because the larger the problem, the more space that you have to actually go and come up with a solution. It's not that Google did not have any job structures. We had many of them. They just didn't talk to each other. I think in some cases we had to kind of have really clear conversations on which skills belong to which roles and which roles we would actually kind of focus those skills on. And that is, I think, you know, a significant challenge because, you know, people look at their identity associated with their jobs.
I see. Is there anything that you would have approached differently knowing what you know now?
I did not anticipate, you know, some of the disruption that AI is going to be coming and doing. And so in many ways, like, you know, this is not an architecture I would have created. If I knew this type of disruption was coming, I would have created a very different architecture, which would give us a lot more adaptability, flexibility across the board. I actually don't look at it from that vantage point. The way I think about it is that an adaptive organization, an adaptive architecture is one which is constantly iterating and evaluating itself. Because if you shift little by little, then large shifts don't daunt you. And so that is, I think, probably the biggest thing which I have learned over the last little
well,
bit.
that's your optimist mindset then.
It is.
Yeah. From an HR perspective, I wanted to ask you, how do you approach the challenge of job security, which is something that a lot of people worry about with the growth of AI, in an era where roles are constantly evolving?
I feel like there is so much more opportunity space where every time there is disruption in these areas. Like, do I want to spend my entire day filling out a form? The answer is absolutely not.
Of course.
You know, if I had discretionary time, what else could I do? I could ask a bunch of questions like, why is this form important? What is the data that comes out of it? Who does it impact? Well, how can I add more value to it? And I think that is the space that you want to be in, right? Think about like any financial analyst, any HR analyst who's there. Today, they're spending 80% of their time collecting data, cleaning data. We spend 20% of our time actually analyzing data and following it all the way through. If you only spend 20% of your time collecting and cleaning data, then you had 80% of your time to analyze. You know, like if you go back 20 years ago, every office had a typist.
And who wants to do that?
And who wants to do that? But that doesn't exist anymore, right?
Right.
All of us are typists.
Yeah.
Those people became office coordinators. Some people became editors. Some people kind of evolved roles. And that's okay. I think that is just a natural part of every role which has been evolving. So I think some of that is going to keep happening in the spaces that we are in. I actually don't think HR or any of the things will become less important. To me, the framing of this ends up becoming that you have the opportunity space to do a lot more.
Yeah, that's an honest answer. I appreciate that. And people operations is tough, but somebody has to do it.
I love doing it. So
I'm sure.
This is the most high leverage job that I've ever had.
Well, did you always know that you wanted to be a part of people operations?
No, absolutely not. I would have never thought that I would be in people operations. Even when I was doing my MBA, I didn't think I was going to end up in people operations, not because of anything else, But because like I was much more on the business side, I was in the product side of the house, so that's what I had expected my career to go. Chanced upon a role in people operation, which is very exciting because that was around the time that Google was setting up Alphabet, which allowed me to play a different role here and kind of help negotiate with the bets. And that was my entry point into people operations, and I loved it. I loved it because I realized, for the longest time in my career, I was trying to pursue products. A better product will make us successful. Somewhere down the line, you realize and you become smarter and you say, oh, but it's not about products. Products are always going to have some flaws. You need processes to kind of make sure that everything kind of lands really well. Products and processes are all dependent on people. And if you get the people right, then the products and policies will actually flow through seamlessly.
I really like that. So I'm actually really grateful to talk to you because as a college student on a path to HR, I've been met with actually a lot of pushback from my family regarding the instability of people and culture management. How have you responded to any doubts regarding your mission?
The role of HR, like the traditional HR person, is going to look different from in the future. I think the opportunity here for people and culture ends up becoming that you can kind of set an organization, large or small, to kind of achieve its highest potential. That is my goal. Like when I kind of look at what do I get up in the morning and say like, I want Google and Googlers to be able to give their absolute best. I want to create the infrastructure, the structures that will enable that to happen effectively. Now, the question is, from your vantage point, are you going to be the traditional HR person? That role doesn't exist anymore. Like that, or the role today is a hyper-consultative role. You're supporting your business leaders, making really good decisions. You're enabling them to kind of get the best out of their workforce. And I think that is like incredible. That's a noble profession in its own right? Now, if you can take a step back, is there instability? In a world which is going to be focused on AI in the future, in a world which technology ends up becoming a lot more available and accessible, often the differentiator is like the human skills, the skills related to empathy, curiosity, your ability to kind of inspire, your ability to kind of make sure that you're getting the best out of people. Those are all very human skills, right? Those become even more important. So I would say that in a world where everything else is shifting, this is actually a really, really good career to have because you can actually make a big difference. It should ideally end up becoming a lot more valuable over time.
And I'm glad you mentioned all of that. I'm going to share that with my family, actually.
That's wonderful.
They'll be watching this. I know you mentioned a piece of advice to me, but what's a piece of advice you would give to your younger self that you wish you had known then?
I wish I had started thinking about people and relationships much earlier on in my career. As typical type A personality, I want to get stuff done. I want to get work done. I still do want to get work done. But what I realized is the importance of people and relationships in getting work done ends up compounding through your career. I think the second thing which I would kind of say is always be learning. Never take learning for granted. If you are not consciously learning, then you're going to potentially lose out on interesting opportunities or not be able to connect the dots as well as you can. I wish every time I decide to put down a book, I pick it up and say, I'm actually going to finish that book because that is an opportunity for me to kind of be a better version of myself sometime in the near future.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I learned from this talk is, nothing is a straight path.
Straight paths are interesting but highly boring. So I would encourage everybody to have the most interesting path that gets you excited about waking up in the morning and doing something great.
I agree with that. So in your experience, have younger generations in the workplace taught you any insights about work or leadership or even yourself?
Oh, I think so. I think when I see the most recent graduates who come to our programs are the most recent engineers, I think the thing which I kind of get from them is this deep sense of, I know I can solve anything. There is this confidence which I love. Everybody who's going to been working for 20, 30 years will have all of us have battle scars. You should always do it this way, you should never do it this way. Or I had this really good experience, I had this really bad experience. Somebody who comes from school or college or is early in their career, they've not had those experiences. which means that you can actually, they are thinking about problems very differently than you. And so I really, really appreciate that perspective, because I learn constantly and I have to kind of reevaluate my own positions. It's one of the things which I love about working at Google. In every other job that I had before this, I was expected to be the smartest person in the room and make the decisions, because like he's the VP, he's the person who's got to make the decision. And yeah, that's interesting and that's helpful, but it's kind of at some point in time, you'll make some stupid decisions and nobody will call you out on it. Versus here, the most junior analyst is going to basically say, Abhay, that doesn't make sense. Here's some reasons why you should consider it. I need to have the humility to A, accept that, B, create the conditions that they should always be sharing that with me, because it makes me smarter by making better decisions or not making mistakes or whatever the case is. Yeah. And I think those are things which I kind of take away from this new generation.
Yeah, there's a quote I like. It says, you can't lead a cavalry if you think you look silly on a horse. Yes. And so it's confidence, but also humility and still staying humble throughout that. So at Oceanside Perspective, we like to say light beyond generations. That's leadership, innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. What does LITE mean to you?
I think the definition of leadership is changing in a material way. For me, what leadership means is, how can I underwrite risks for my organization, for my teams, in a way that they can do their best work. If you're only ever operating within your authority, you're not a leader. From a beyond generation standpoint, what that means for me is 10, 15 years ago, you would have expected like a more like a command control operating process, or a leader who's like much more like, I'm going to tell you what to do and here are all the things you need to do. I think the leader, and what I have learned about leadership, and I've learned all of this thanks to Google, is literally that you have to listen in order to learn and lead. For me, innovation is all about learning and curiosity. Like people say they get bored of their jobs. I've never been bored of a job. I've always looked at a job and thought, oh, this is an interesting frame of reference. Now, what can I do with it? Like, it's like a starting palette. Nobody's asking you to end at that palette, but it's a starting palette. Like, even the thing which I might be the worst at doing actually makes me better. And that is the thing which like most people don't kind of absorb about innovation, is innovation comes from doing some hard things. I think the new generation is so incredibly creative, so incredibly innovative. And that is basically where, like, you know, if I kind of go into entrepreneurship and everything else, I think all of us are moving to a world where every person should be an entrepreneur to one extent or another. You have to kind of have that, even within an organization. I'm sitting in HR and I say I'm an entrepreneur, which means that if you're sitting in the business, you're sitting in any other area, you're definitely an entrepreneur. And I think that is really interesting from my vantage point.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, yeah. All right, well, thank you, Abhay, so much for joining us today. It means so much to be able to speak with you and get to pick up on some of your insight of future of work. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, share this video with your community, and consider donating to our cause to continue to uplift perspectives from all ages. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.